So hello, everyone. Welcome to the Let's Talk About Mental Health panel. My name is Ella Katz. Just a quick introduction. I am a junior, 20 years old at the University of Southern California, studying journalism and minoring in entertainment and passionate about all things mental health. Okay, great. We have Adara here too. Passionate about all things mental health, wellness, and really fostering those conversations. A little bit about me. In the fall of 2019, so a year ago, I was a sophomore at the time at USC, and I knew as a college sophomore that whatever USC was doing around the conversation in this space of mental health, wellness, digital wellness, work-life balance, it wasn't enough. And I knew that despite my small following, I'm just a college kid from Chicago, right? I knew that I had to do something, and that despite my, I'm not an anybody, but I knew that my voice was power enough, and that I felt compelled to do something about it. I was suffering from a persistent imposter syndrome, telling myself that I wasn't smart enough, good enough. But I knew I had to do something and fast. So I chose to ignore all my doubts. And that's when Everything But the Bagel was born, which is my weekly column aimed to help my peers at USC and students across the country and across the world, hopefully, get through the ups and downs of their respective college experiences through relatable anecdotes, interviews, and my curated edited recommendations. And so that is kind of how I have started contributing to this conversation, started talking about mental health in my own life. And to me, if just one person is being impacted by my work, then I'm doing it right. And it's been the most powerful, transformative experience. And I've been in this space for a year. I contribute to Thrive Global. And I cannot wait to hear from all the other panelists about the amazing work in this space that they're doing today. So today, I am joined by four incredibly intelligent, passionate, curious, young panelists, but my words really don't begin to do them justice. So I'd love for each of them to briefly introduce themselves, and we can just start with Melvin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melvin Mofus. I'm 18 years old. I'm currently living in New York, Yonkers, New York. I go to Westchester Community College, where I am still undecided about choosing my major, but I've been super passionate about mental health. I think everyone needs some form of mental help, because in society we go through a lot, especially in Black and Brown communities. We don't really have access to reliable mental health mediums. And I just wanted to get in here and just talk about that and talk about how we can help those people. So yes, thank you.
Let's go to Christina.
Yeah, for sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Christina Vadivelu. I'm 17 years old, so I'm a senior in high school, and I'm from Toronto. So my journey with mental health, it's been a time. For me, what I struggle with most was anxiety. For me, it was anxiety, and for me, it was talking about it. Talking about it was super hard. Like as Melvin said, I come from a brown background. I'm Sri Lankan, and so it's not something that's really talked about at home. It's more of a taboo topic, and it was really hard to open up at first. And I started opening up, started talking to friends, started talking to just like people who I trusted. And it's crazy because as you kind of talk more about it, you kind of find more people that are exactly like you, and you figure out that there are other people who struggle with it. And like that was my turning point, and that's what also kind of made me want to start being an advocate for mental health and show other kids just like me, other teens just like me, that it's okay to talk about it. And just because it's something that's not talked about at home doesn't mean that it's something that should never be talked about. So yeah.
Thank you, Christina. Let's go to Vinaya.
Hi guys, my name is Vinaya Sivakumar, and I'm 15 years old, and I study at CIRS, but the longer form is Chinmaya International Residential School. It's all the way in India. I'm really passionate about pretty much anything, any topic, because I love them all. um, I think that starting the conversation is the most important thing. And I think that just because you don't talk about it doesn't mean that it's non-existent. So I'm really passionate about that. But I'm also really passionate about mental health, and that's why I'm here today. In 7th grade, I had a really big low. I struggled with depression and anxiety. And what got me through it was talking with other people. And I was really grateful to have support and people around me who cared about me and to show me that, okay, everything is all right. So I really want to bring that platform and allow other people to be like, have that chance and opportunity to like express themselves, because like Christina said, it's really just talking about it that helps you get through it. So that's just a little bit about me.
Thanks, Naya. And then let's hear from Adara.
Awesome. Hey guys, I am Adara from Toronto. And for me, I've always been really passionate about a lot of social impact areas that I've seen going on in the world. So when I was younger, it was more of like an advocacy perspective. And I still think that's so important that we start these conversations, especially in the mental health space. But I also want to push for like more action as well, having like actionable steps, solutions, kind of what this whole summit's about, so that we can actually change the way that things are happening in the systems that have caused problems to be the way that they are right now. Specifically within mental health, I had a lot of hard experiences within school. For me right now, I'm in online school, and I started online school about a year, just over a year ago, in the environment, and also through social media as well. So hopefully we can talk about some of those important things today and how we can change that. But I left school because of that. And I remember just like not feeling supportive and safe in school many times, especially within the mental health aspect. And I became really passionate about that. So I always wanted to advocate for that. I was on the Minister of Education Council where I live in this province called Ontario in Canada. And what I did there was we wrote a proposal to the Minister of Education for some mental health related topics. Not all of them were really rolled out, but I think it's super important that we implement those in our education systems and the workplace, as many places as we can, so that we can have more action and also start more of these conversations.
Thank you. Well, thank you all. I hope those brief intros gave everyone a glimpse into these amazing young thought leaders. And I think we should just jump right into it in talking about action, because a few of you gave kind of your personal stories, and I invite you, like if you feel like you wanted to share more, please do after I ask this question, because I think that transparency is key about this conversation. Just kind of echoing what Vinaya was saying, it is crazy to think about how just talking about it is such a big step. And people don't realize that, especially with college, high school, middle school age groups, because normalizing that conversation will then turn into action and changes, small changes, practices in our daily lives that then influence our communities and then eventually the world. But talking about action a little bit more specifically, maybe just so I don't have to call your names, we can just go in the same order of people, starting with Melvin. But our audience today is looking for strategies and solutions to some of the harms of digital overload and specifically social media. I think we are increasingly seeing this harm with Zoom University. I was talking about earlier today in a different breakout room, everything is like right here where I'm sitting. It's browser to browser. It's yoga to this, to my essay, to my family FaceTime. It's all right there. And it's a lot, and it is taking a toll on our mental health, which we're now realizing it, and we're talking about it, which is why we're here today, but it's hard. So I would like to ask, what are some of your personal solutions, right? What has worked for each of you, and what are steps that we as an audience can take after today to see a difference and live a life that incorporates a better tech life balance?
So I know within like the last 2 to 3 years, I spent a lot of time on social media, like several hours a day. And it was definitely not good for my mental health. It wasn't until like it wasn't until 2019 that I started thinking about, maybe I should limit the time I'm on social media like Instagram and Twitter, Snapchat. And I never really went through with it. I just was like, it might be good, but I was just so addicted to social media that I didn't even want to go. It wasn't, then 2020 came, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to go on social media at all. I completely shut off social media. I was off every single medium. And so far it's been about 9.5 months. So I'm still doing fine, but honestly, I wouldn't recommend completely shutting off social media because you miss out on a lot. Though so much happened this year with George Floyd, coronavirus, like it's been a crazy year, I think we can all say. And, with social media, we talk about these things and, you don't want to be out of the loop. So but for me, it's been helpful for me, I guess, because I don't have to conform to society standards. I don't have to conform to what people say. I don't see that every day. I feel like when you're seeing what people say about what you should look like, how you should act, like just so many different things, it definitely helps. It just changes your perspective on everything. So my solution, I would say, to limit your time on social media, definitely try to be more productive, but don't be overproductive because that is also harmful to your mental health. Maybe if you're going for like, if you are on social media like I was for like 10 hours a day, try to tame it down to maybe 7 hours and 5 hours, and then slowly trickle down to max 2 hours, but 1 hour, 30 minutes, it definitely does help. That's my advice.
Thank you. But that was a great answer. And I was going to ask you guys later what you thought about unplugging, because I know personally I'll, just delete the app off my phone for 48 hours. And it feels like a lifetime. And I notice things on the street, or wherever at the grocery store, because I'm not in the checkout line like this, that I would have never noticed. Right. But it also, I think it's less about, I respect people. It's amazing, Melvin, that you've been off for so long. And I think you can get to a point where like, this is what I need to do for myself. And that's great. That's beautiful. But I think it's also about learning. These are a platform. We can say that these platforms, that social media is an alternate version of reality, but we live like they're the real deal. So we need to learn how to live with them and put in that work and set the time limits and whatever it is, right? To be able to like live a healthy life and post and comment and like. But let's hear from Christina.
I think it's important when you're just thinking about social media and its impact is to figure out like, how is it impacting you? For me, for example, like I think my experience is a bit different. For me, I found like social media was just having a huge impact on like my definition of beauty. Like that's where I struggled with, and that's where that's where I developed anxiety, was because of just like beauty in general and how like social media impacts beauty standards and both like Western and Eastern beauty standards. And what I found is that it was more or less just like getting distracted by like all of these different posts, going to people's stories and having no end to it, comparing their lives to mine, comparing how they look to me. And like that was when I needed to cross the line, because I knew that it just wasn't healthy. Like I was like looking at these like people who were so much different from me, right? Like live such a completely different lifestyle, and comparing myself to them, comparing the way that I look to them, it just was so unrealistic. And something that helped me was literally just training that habit of like removing stories, just like not looking at stories. And I know that it's not for everyone. I know that some people can go through stories and not care, but for me, like that's where it came. That's where it stemmed from. For me, it stemmed from like going through my friends' stories, going through friends of friends, and just being like, why is it my life like that? Why am I sitting at home in these four walls, just like doing my homework when everyone's out partying? Why don't I have that life? I know there are some ways that people have found that they can just like remove the stories off of their app. I haven't figured that out yet. But what I do in like my habit is that I merely just use my social media as a terms of communication. And I know that it takes a while in order to be able to do that just with like Snapchat or Instagram or whatever. But now that's how I use it. And it's just a habit, I think. Like if I were to answer that question, it's just a habit of not checking stories and not just falling victim to that and falling victim to comparing yourself to how others look and how others live their life, essentially.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that was a great response. I think habit is something that you said that is so huge that I want to emphasize, because what is it? It takes like 21 days to form a habit, and it's these little things. The story thing I should definitely take advantage of, because stories are comparison city. That's where it happens. And I think it's so great to look at social media as a means of connecting. That's like what it was made for. And we are all going to be able to connect after this. I'm sure people listening to this conversation will reach out to us after this webinar, and there's something amazing about that. So I think it's, intentionally using it to benefit you. And also any other panelists can comment. Like, it doesn't have to go through me, like everyone talking, everyone. But let's hear from Vinaya.
So when we're talking about tech life balance, especially with COVID situation and all that stuff, it's really hard to find the balance between how much are you using technology for productivity versus how much you're using it for just entertainment. Are you using it for, like making a difference in the world, or using it for a social pacifier? So you really need to analyze, why are you using technology? And I feel like once you differentiate that, you're able to pretty much everything just falls into place. For me, like I've been on Snapchat, Instagram, all that from 3rd grade. I didn't have any friends, but I'd be constantly on it. And when I moved from America to India, to my school, CIRS, there we don't have technology. So I went through a lot of these like withdrawal symptoms. Like suddenly I was like, what am I supposed to do with myself? Because I always pacified myself with social media. But after we came back, I watched The Social Dilemma. And I deleted TikTok, which was like the biggest thing. Like, if you know me, you know TikTok. So I deleted it, and it was just, and I started putting like screen times on my phone, and my mom was sitting there. She's like, what are you doing? Who are you? Because it was a completely different version of me. So now I'm able to handle myself, be like, okay, I will communicate with you, but just give me some time to respond, because I'll be doing other things. It really helped me bond with my family, look outside, see the world, because it's seriously changing. Like, this is like history that we're experiencing right now. And so I just think that you just need to understand, why are you using it? And for apps like Instagram and Facebook, or Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, I generally don't go on those apps too often, because there's an algorithm that makes you want to stay more. So I lean towards iMessage or FaceTime or WhatsApp or any other messaging app, because there's no algorithm. You are there simply because of communication. There's nothing telling you, you're not selling yourself to any company. You're not producing like this image of you. There's no standards. It's just purely communication. So I think that it's a long journey from 7th grade to now. There's like a huge difference from where I've come from, but I think it's just really analyzing, how are you like differentiating? Like, I think that this is very hard to explain because it's a very long journey, and I'm really trying to sum it up all into like a few minutes. But I think that's the very first step that you can achieve that whole tech life balance. So yeah.
I'm going to throw in, we're not like at the Q&A part yet, but I feel like Adara, you can maybe touch on this, or any other panelists when we'll circle back. But I believe it was, I wrote it down, Diana or Diana, I don't know which one it is, asks, how do you balance being in the loop with news and trends versus over consuming, and where do you draw the line? I think this is a really important question. Adara, no pressure. You can say what you had planned to say, but if you want to speak to this, or if anyone else does after, feel free.
Cool. Okay. I just wanted to touch a little bit off of some of those points from before.
Please.
Staying in the loop as well. I don't actually rely on the social media portion as much for staying in the news. Although I'll talk about that a bit after as well, but I love the points you all mentioned about like the balance between being on like social media and having all this kind of overexposure of always being online. Like for me, it's always like I have my online school and then I have calls with people. It's just all like digital, always on my laptop, and like your eyes get tired, then your brain gets tired. It's just there's a lot to it. So a couple of things I wanted to say in terms of like balancing it is I think you got to start small, and that's with any habit. So if you can like find, do I have an extra 15 minutes? Like start small. People often don't start things because they're like, I only have this amount of time, so that's not significant. But even if you have 15 minutes a day and that's I'm going to go on a walk and I have to do this. Like I have this scheduled, I have to go on this walk today. Or if there's a creative outlet that you really enjoy, you want to try something new to change things up. Last week I challenged myself to start kickboxing. I spontaneously signed up for like a free trial week. And when every single day I was like, this is my challenge, I have to do it. And that way I had something that I like I expressed myself through it. And I was doing something that was off my laptop, which generally, and I found it really helped my mental health. So starting small with a little time chunk, I would recommend trying that out and then seeing if you can increase that amount of time. In terms of just like social media and the things that we're exposed with, I loved what Vinaya said about like knowing your why. It can be a really great tool. It's awesome for connectivity, especially during this time. I guess if we didn't have it, maybe we wouldn't be talking to people as often, and maybe we'd come with social media as well, seeing like these highlight reels all the time and everything. So what I think is really important to do is to think about it as like, this is my digital environment. In your real environment, you want to surround yourself with certain types of people because that directly influences the type of person that you become and the thoughts that you have. Your environment is so important. So in your social media environment, think about who are you following and the content you're consuming. And is this align with who you want to be or the things that you enjoy? Or are you just following this because you feel like you have to? Something that I did was kind of bold was I deleted my Instagram completely about a month or so ago. I had like the average amount of followers, things like that. But I always found like I felt like I didn't enjoy like the people I was following and things like that. And I felt bad unfollowing people that like I went to school with before, even though some of them were mean to me or whatever. I just felt really bad doing it. And I felt like I had to follow them, and you have to comment, and all these like pressures that aren't really there. There's kind of these unwritten rules that we all do, or you have to tag like your friend, like all these things that we put into place. And I was like, no, I'm going to do something that's uncomfortable. And that's often like what helps you like grow the most. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to follow the accounts that I genuinely want to see to inspire me, to learn from. Like that's like the news piece too. If there's like specific kind of really good sources, you can follow those. And then the people too who you genuinely want to like connect with, and or people that you enjoy following and aren't just because you feel pressured to. I think that's so important. It doesn't matter like how many followers you have or how many people you're following, but like the quality of it and that environment that you're creating. So for news, there are some great news outlets that you can follow on Instagram, and even TikTok is a place where a lot of people are talking about issues right now. It can just be a lot though if you're constantly seeing this. Like I know across the story piece, like Christina said, I always just saw so many people like reposting things, and I felt like I had to. Otherwise, I'm being like a horrible citizen if I'm not reposting all these things that are happening. And I think there's different ways that we can help create change. So it doesn't need to be necessarily reposting. The actual like action piece in your real life is more important. So I try to stay away from stories too, but you can follow specific news outlets to stay in the loop. And then I think it's important to like stay up to date and like find credible sources. So on your own, just doing your own research to like fact check and figure out and talk to people instead of having to rely on social media and feel like overstimulated and overwhelmed by all the things that are happening in the world right now. Those are some of my pieces of like thoughts right now. I want to hear what you guys have to say about like the news part too.
Kind of going off of that, I loved what Adara, I'm so sorry. But I loved what you said about when something is uncomfortable, it means that you're growing. And to stay in the loop without any social media, there's something so ancient called newspapers, and it's pretty much all the same things. But, you know, we just kind of don't even think about that anymore because we have all this information that's so readily available to us just at our fingertips. But I occasionally read the newspaper sometimes because I'm like always like just in bed, and it's like it's a big process. But you know, when you want to really learn something, I definitely recommend the newspapers because they're like exceptional with that, right? And when you think about like social media, like Instagram or TikTok, although the information is true, it's not exactly credible. You know, they're just telling you whatever they've heard, and it's just this huge, you know, chain of miscommunication that ultimately just leads to like this reality where it's not exactly true. You know, like you don't want to hear the wrong thing. Like I know that I generally keep myself updated with a lot of these like current issues and stuff, but I remember that I was misinformed and then went and put that on my story, and then I was like, well, now I've just, you know, like made the chain even bigger. So staying informed is not that hard, but it depends on how much you really want it. How much are you ready to like do for it? So that's what I wanted to kind of piggyback off of what you said.
That's great. I think there's this analogy that I know I'm moderating, but I think it's relevant, that I think of, and I actually told Susan about this when we were meeting a few weeks ago, that I try to think of social media like I think of sunscreen. Like when you go to the beach on a really sunny day, you know you should put sunscreen on, or someone's probably going to yell at you, you're going to get a sunburn, whatever it is, to protect yourself. If you're going to expose yourself to the UV and the strong rays of the sun, you're going to protect yourself. We signed up for social media. We made the username and password. It doesn't feel like a choice, but it is. And we need to, like Adara was saying, like everyone's been saying, cater our feed to the people we actually want to follow, not the people we feel like that we should follow. We need to set time limits. Like Melvin was saying, maybe even take a break. Like we, not go on stories, like Christine, like what everyone of these four panelists have been saying. I think that can be applied here. And you think about it like a responsibility, and you think about it like, okay, I'm going to take part in this. I'm going to post, I'm going to like, I'm going to comment. That's fine. But I'm also going to be mindful about that and about what I can do to make it a more positive experience. I have a question for you all from one of our audience members. I think is a great question. Sophia asks, Instagram is playing a lot on FOMO, fear of missing out. It's something I'm very passionate about. I talk about a ton. I think it's huge when talking about mental health and social media. So Sophia asks, how do we fight this feeling and this fear of missing out, especially when we're traveling? It's difficult to find the balance of, I want to get a cute Instagram photo, but I want to be present. That used to be a huge thing for me. I think my mom's on this and she's probably laughing. But I want to know what you guys think.
Okay, so I guess I'll go. So that fear of missing out, I think you just need to conquer that fear. When you really think about it, you're missing out on real life when you constantly are on social media. You're not focused on the people who are around you, their environment. And I think it's very important that we focus on the here and now, because we're only here for, in reality, we're not here for too long, and you don't want to really spend time focused on comments, likes, posts, lives. Like you should definitely focus on yourself, conquer that fear, and you'll see exactly what you can do. But I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks on that.
I agree. I definitely agree with Melvin, but something that I also just wanted to add is something that helped me, and that what I did as well, is just figuring out like what's important to you. Like, is it important for you to like know that your friend had her like 16th birthday party and you weren't invited? Like, is that super important for you to know? Is it super important for you to know that, like, I don't know, like your favorite store like dropped a new collection? Like, is that super important to you? Does that matter to you? And if it does, then all right, like you might want to be informed, but there's going to be other topics that you consume, but it's more like you're passively consuming it and it doesn't really matter. I know that's easier said than done. Like, I know it's super easy to say that, like, it doesn't matter what other people think about you. But I think once you actually truly realize what you care about and what's important to you, your life's never going to be the same again, because you realize that like all of these hours and all of this time that you spent like dreading over maybe what other people thought about you, the fact that your post on Instagram didn't fit your aesthetic on your feed, all of these different things, you're going to save yourself so much time and so much mental energy, because you can use that time on other things. And I think like that's how I would kind of go about it, to answer your question, is just to like really sit down and even journal about it if that helps, and just figure out like what's actually important to me and what matters, and what's gonna last, like after, a day, after 2 days, what really matters to me. Yeah.
That's great. I want everyone to answer, but we're running out of time, and we have 2 more amazing questions that I want to get to. This question is from one of our attendees. It's anonymous, and it says, in Orthodox families like here in India, where people do not believe in mental health and academics take up most of a student's time, how do such students deal with mental health? That is a great question. I would love someone to go for it and answer.
Well, I could answer that because I have a lot of experience with that too. So I was in America where it's really laid back. You can do a lot of different things. If I like English and sports, it's well and good. But in India, whoever like asked that question, it's not exactly the same thing. So the way that I in school deal with my mental health is, I know that whoever asked this would probably know that if you were to speak about mental health, you might be looked at weird because it's not normal, and then your family's worth or self-respect would go down. So find your tribe, find those people that know you, find those people who can relate to you and really understand you and know the true you with no filter. Try journaling, try going out and spending more time in nature, try doing things that you love. And with that, your brain will just automatically analyze things by itself. You don't have to do anything, right? Like I journal quite frequently, and I'll be writing about what I ate for dinner and then end up with a crisis at the end. And then when I wake up and then like tomorrow morning, I'll be like, oh, well, so I definitely like writing is my mechanism for like coping and stuff. But I definitely like, I understand like that, yes, like you want to say something and you can't, like I understand that, but that's like a thing that we all have to change together. But in the meantime, like focus on yourself and don't really care about other people think. That's what I would say to that question.
That was great. Also, I think I'm just going to add quickly, be kind to yourself. I think it is really hard to have a parent or someone in a position of power, authority, a teacher that doesn't value mental health. I also think, I don't know what our other panelists think before I ask our final question, but there's no going back to the previous normal, in my opinion. This time, this moment, this pandemic is so unique in that it is showing us, whether we want to believe it or not, that we can no longer put our mental health on the back burner. So I would argue that, yes, I've lived in the States for my entire life, but I would argue that hopefully where you're living in India, other countries and places in the world will start to realize how important these conversations are and be authentic and unique. And it's okay if your parents or your family or your friends don't agree with these thoughts. They will see you start living and breathing and having a healthier, happier life, and they will be like, wait, what are you doing? I want to do it. And be nice to yourself. But I want everyone's answers. We're going to run out of time. So I think I would just like to ask to end on, wait, let me get it 1 second. Don't want to miss it. So someone asked, are there ways we can always use social media in a positive way, in a way it doesn't affect our mental health? And maybe just more generally, if you can just leave, if there's one thing you want to leave our audience with today, whether it's a tip, a trick, a mantra, like whatever it is that has helped you and you think can help them too.
I can start with that one. I think in terms of using it for good all the time, I don't think you should just assume that it's always going to be good or easy necessarily. just knowing that it won't be and that that's okay. But you can have your own intention to try to use it in the most positive way that you can. So again, that point earlier about creating the environment you want, the people you want to follow, the posts that you genuinely want to share with people, because it makes you happy, not because of necessarily what other people will think. And it's okay. Sometimes we slip up when we don't realize the intention behind the things we're doing, and that's okay as well. And we can learn from that. So just know yourself and know your limits to social media and how it's affecting you, how it's making you feel, and the intention behind things that you do and how you use it. And then figure out how you can spend more of your time doing that and catch yourself in those habits. And then in terms of, I saw another question too about like, it takes a while to build these habits as well. Some things I would recommend to do these things is, again, like know why, because I think with like doing anything, if you know your why and it's really strong, that's something that will drive you, and remembering what that kind of like vision is, or why this is so important to you, or just important in general, will be what keeps you going when it gets really hard. Also, I love having accountability buddies. If you have a friend, so say Melvin also really wants to go on this really good social media journey with me, we're like, okay, we're both going to delete TikTok. We're going to start posting intentional things on Instagram. I'm going to keep you accountable. Can you keep me accountable? And if he sees that I'm being really weird, I'm like doing things to like impress other people, maybe he'll call me out on it, and we can make sure that we keep like growing on this journey. One thing I really want to leave with people watching this is I think we need to have, again, more of these discussions, but also on like the actionable pieces. I want more social media networks and designers to talk to youth about what we want these networks to look like. I know there's a specific way that Instagram works right now and TikTok and everything in these algorithms, but I think we need to change a lot of those things in order to make it better. And I know the whole incentive right now is you buy attention using ads, and it turns out to be really bad for our mental health. That's just the way that it's built. However, my call to action to like social media networks is, I think it's actually better if you have happy users. If we have content that we're consuming on your platform, and the algorithm works in a way that we're getting the things and value out of it that we want to, and that's good for our mental health, we're going to keep using your platform because we genuinely enjoy using it. And if our mental health is really poor, we're not going to use your platform anymore. So I think that is so important, and that we need to be a part of those conversations and you designing that and co-creating all of those solutions. So those are a couple things that are really important that I want to leave behind, but I want to hear everyone else's awesome thoughts.
Did we run out of time, or can I stay?
We're cool. Yeah, it's 1:30, so just quick wrap up, but say what you wanted to say. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Just before everyone leaves, I just want to, if I had to leave one thing to everyone here, is just to really reflect on what you want and then come back to that question, because you don't really know as of now. I think when you spend some time alone, that really does help you. That's just the one thing I want to leave out there.
One thing, I know we're like almost there, but I'll keep it short. It's gonna be hard. We're growing up in this world where it's like an alternate reality, and to kind of step back from that, it's going to be hard, but it's all right. We'll get through this. Prioritize yourself, know why you're doing it and what you're doing it for. We're kind of being brainwashed here, so to not be brainwashed is a little bit, hard. But just love yourself, put yourself at the first priority, because you are in your own life. Make yourself the main character, and that's it. That's all I'd like to say.
And just to end off, I think if I were to leave you with one thing, and it's been told to me a bunch, it's just to be intentional about every single thing that you do. Be intentional about every single person that you're following on Instagram, just like Adara was saying. Be intentional about every single post. Be intentional about what you're putting on your story. For example, like recently, something that I've been trying to do and I've been more mindful of is celebrating Tamil culture, because that's something that, as I told you before, I struggled with like defining beauty and like what that means for me. And so for me, it's just like being comfortable in my culture. Hence, I'm wearing a putsu today, just to be more comfortable and realize that, it's important to use your platform, use any outlets that you have in order to like speak your voice and speak what you think, and just to be an advocate for what you believe in and what you think is important and what matters to you.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. This was, I could talk about this with you all and ask so many more questions for hours. And I think we should continue the conversation. We can connect hopefully with each other and all of you through the HOVA app on your computer, your phone. But now you should head to the, what is it called? The call, it's going to be with Tristan Harris. He's from The Social Dilemma. It's going to be great. So you can log in through the app, and he's going to talk about a youth-led movement, and then Susan's going to wrap up the day. So thank you all so much for tuning into this conversation. Hopefully this is the start of many conversations like this, and hope everyone's staying positive and testing negative. So bye, guys.